Hello, healers! Welcome to the first installment of my monthly series. The Skill Building for Thai Bodyworkers Series was designed to formally introduce you to your body. You will sharpen your anatomy, physiology, and kinesiology skills while learning cool Thai massage techniques to address the body's needs. This series is specifically for people who have taken at least one Thai massage course and do not have a strong background in anatomy. It is also beneficial if you have taken an anatomy course in the past and wish to strengthen your knowledge. While Thai massage is an energetic modality, you're still manipulating the physical body. This series will help you know the things you're touching. So, before we jump into specific conditions, let's talk about basic anatomical terms. This will help you to navigate future blogs. So be sure to use this as a resource because it will make your life a lot easier when things get a little bit more specific. I've included a PDF of this blog for future reference. In this edition, we'll be discussing the names of each directional plane and movements within those planes. The woman in the illustration is standing in anatomical position. This is the point of reference for all movement. This position means that the person is standing up straight, feet forward, head forward, and palms of the hands are facing forward as well. The planes are three imaginary lines penetrating the body to aid in visualizing the spatial relationship. The first plane we'll discuss is the sagittal plane. This is a lengthwise cut dividing the body into left and right portions. Mid-sagittal means that the cut divides the body into equal left and right halves. The frontal, or also known as the coronal plane, that runs perpendicular to both the sagittal and the transverse planes. It divides the body into anterior, which is the front, and posterior, which is the back portion. The transverse, or horizontal plane, runs perpendicular to the sagittal plane. It divides the body into superior, which is an upper half, and inferior, which is the lower portion. Movements in the sagittal plane include flexion, extension, hyperextension, dorsiflexion, and plantar flexion. Flexion is when you decrease the angle between two bones. It bends the joint or brings two bones closer together. Extension is the opposite. It increases the angle between two bones by straightening or opening the joint. So in this picture, my bent arm is an example of flexion at the elbow. My client's arms are an example of extension at the elbow, but also flexion at the shoulder joint. Hyperextension increases the angle between two bones by straightening or opening the joint, extending beyond its normal range of motion. So in this picture, I show the client laying prone, which is face down, and doing a hip flexor stretch. Dorsiflexion is a movement of the ankle that lifts the toes towards the head. So in this example, I'm flexing the foot to stretch the muscles at the bottom of the foot, but also stretching the calves as well. Plantar flexion is the opposite. It's a movement at the ankle that points the foot towards the ground, kind of like when you step on a gas pedal. Movements on the frontal plane include abduction, adduction, ulnar deviation, radial deviation, and lateral flexion. Abduction moves the limb away from the midline of the body. So for example, in this photo, I abducted the leg to palm press her muscles on the inside of her leg, the medial portion, which are called the adductors. Adduction is the opposite. It moves the limbs towards the midline of the body. So for example, after I finished doing this particular technique, I would use adduction to replace the leg towards the midline of the body. Abduction and adduction at the wrist joint are called radial deviation and ulnar deviation. Radial deviation is when the hand is palm up and angles towards the thumb side, or the radius bone in the forearm. Ulnar deviation is the opposite. It's when the hand is palm up and angling towards the pinky finger in the hand, which is also angling towards the ulnar bone in the forearm. Lateral flexion flexes the head or the vertebral column to one side. This is a head and vertebral column movement only. So in the picture, I'm doing a neck stretch using my forearm, and her head is in lateral flexion. And lastly, we'll talk about the transverse plane. Movements in the transverse plane include rotation, medial and lateral rotation, inversion, eversion, supination, pronation, horizontal adduction, horizontal abduction, circumduction, and opposition. Rotation is turning from side to side. This is also a head and vertebral column movement only. So for example, I'm doing a twist on my client, but it's also the same as shaking your head no. Medial and lateral rotation are sometimes referred to as internal and external rotation. Medial rotation, or internal rotation, turns the body part inward. Lateral or external rotation turns the body part outward, so away from the body. In both of the photos shown, the internal and external rotation is occurring at the hip joint. Inversion is a movement of the sole of the foot inward towards the midline of the body. So for example, in this photo, I'm twisting the foot at the ankle joint towards the midline. Eversion is the opposite of that. It's a movement at the sole of the foot outward, away from the midline of the body. Supination is a movement of the hand that turns the palm upwards. Pronation is the opposite of that. It's a movement of the hand that turns the palm downwards. Horizontal adduction is a movement that adds the limb towards the midline of the body in the horizontal or transverse plane. Horizontal abduction, as you can see, is the opposite of that. It's a movement that takes the limb away from the midline of the body in the horizontal plane. Circumduction turns the body part in a complete circle. And lastly, thumb opposition. This is the only joint that can perform this particular motion. Thumb opposition is when the thumb and the fingertips touch. So not just the pinky finger that's shown in the video, but also any of the other fingers too. Well, that's it for this installment of Skill Building for Thai Bodyworkers. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any requests for specific injuries or conditions or breaking down different parts of the body, feel free to let me know. You can reach me at my website, nirvanalandcontinuinged.com. You can also reach me on Instagram and Facebook. Have a great day.